Story 1. Here's another story of me being a Target mobile manager dealing with entitled guests. Back in 2019, Target decided to run a pre-Black Friday 3-day event 2 weeks before the actual event. This was supposed to help break up the shoppers and make Black Friday easier. On the last day of the event, I was forced to work a 14-hour day because my closer called off. Luckily, my district manager let me go home an hour earlier and managed to switch my shift the next day so I could sleep. I told Target management about what was going on, and they were pretty understanding with it. Also, my district manager made sure that everyone knew that once our departments were closed on the last day, that we cannot offer any kind of extensions to the promos. Target and my company made it very clear that because this event was being advertised everywhere, that people would find out quickly and have ample amount of time to come in. Quitting time hits, and I put up the sign that states that we are now closed and what are the times we normally work. Just to make it clear, normal hours state that we close at 8, and I was leaving at 7. 9:30 rolls around, and I'm at home watching a movie trying to sleep when my work phone goes off. I answer, and here's how the conversation went. "Hello. Is this the mobile guy at Target?" Karen asks. "Yes, it is. How can I help you?" "Well, I came in today to upgrade my phone with you guys because of the deals you had on. I saw that no one was here, but one of the Target managers gave me your number because she said you left work early and told me to see if you could help out." At this point, I thought that the lady showed up before our closing time and decided to go home and call me after she got my information. If that was the case, I'd give her number to my manager and have him find a solution. "Sure, let's see what I can do. Can you tell me what time you came into the store?" "Of course, I showed up at 8:30. "Oh well, I'm sorry ma'am, but you showed up 30 minutes after closing time. There is nothing I can do on my side because our hours are posted up in the store, and I know the advertisement stated our hours of operation during the event. But the manager here said you left early, so you need to help me. Again, you showed up 30 minutes after close. Even if I stayed the whole day, you still would have missed me. I do know that Black Friday will have these deals again, so you can always come back. No, I'm here now and you will come here and help me or I will get you fired." "Ma'am, I don't take threats well and will not deal with this. I don't even have to be talking to you now because I'm off the clock, but I did out of the kindness in my heart, which was the wrong move. Come back on Black Friday. If you don't, then that's not my problem." I hang up the phone and continue to watch the movie. 30 minutes later, and after a few missed calls from Karen, I get an email from the Target manager which goes as follows. "Hey, I know it's after hours, but I have a lady here who said she came in after you left. She called you and said you were being rude. I just want to help because you did leave a bit earlier than normal and would like for you to call me so we can come up with a solution. Here's my number." So I sighed and gave her a call. When she answered, I told the manager about the conversation the lady had with me and explaining the time that the lady told me she came in. I told her to check the cameras to make sure of the time. I also told her about what corporate said about not extending the deal and how there is nothing my district manager or myself can do. She thanked me for calling and explaining what was going on and told me that it would be taken care of. We hung up and I passed out for the night. The next day, the manager who I called asked to talk to me in her office. I agreed and followed her there. When we got there, she explained that after we hung up, she told Karen about the policy corporate made and how because she showed up late that there is nothing she can do. Karen hated that answer and started yelling obscenities to the point that security had to escort her out. As far as I could tell, she never came back on Black Friday, and I thankfully never heard from her again. Story 2. A month or so ago, I posted here the adventure of Linda trying to get me to open the access gate. Fortunately, Linda's daughter, Victoria, has been firm to her mother about her manners. Linda reached out to me with a profuse apology and flowers. While the flowers made my brother sneeze, Linda did seem repentant, and she was allowed over for the first time maybe a week or so ago. She behaved herself so Victoria, and I expressed our hopes that maybe she did learn her lesson. That was until last night. Victoria's brother-in-law, let's call him Kevin, was killed in a car accident a few days ago. Since Kevin lived in Texas, Victoria and the rest of her immediate family booked a flight to help attend the funeral. Since Victoria and I are next-door neighbors and friends, she gave me an extra copy of her keys and asked me to keep an eye on their cat, sort their mail, and just make sure things were okay at the house. I agreed because this was an emergency and I'd trust her to take care of our house if something similar happened. Yesterday morning, Linda knocked on my door and politely asked me to let her into Victoria's house because she had forgotten her prescription. Since I wasn't sure if Linda was allowed, I texted Victoria to make sure it was okay for her mom to go in. Victoria said it was fine and I let Linda in. While we were in, I checked on their cat. I'll admit this was a huge mistake on my part, and was only gone for a moment before Linda said she found what she was looking for, even showing me the medication bottle she misplaced. Satisfied, I locked up and Linda left. Several hours later, my brother, Mark, and I decided to go out for dinner because neither of us felt like cooking. When we returned, we saw that some of the lights in Victoria's house were on. I knew I hadn't turned them on, and those lights weren't on a timer to deter burglars. I called the police, explained what was going on, and asked them to come over and check, because we aren't stupid enough to go inside and confront a potential burglar. Fortunately, there were a couple of officers, let's call them Warren and Leo, close by, so they came over within a few minutes. While we were explaining what was going on, who would come out of the door but Linda? She was wearing a bathrobe and had her hair wrapped up in a towel, which added to everyone's confusion. Warren: "Good evening, ma'am. Sorry to disturb you, but do you live here?" Linda, confused and looking like a scared rabbit, said, "I don't speak English in Spanish." Leo: "Excuse me, ma'am. Do you speak Spanish?" He said that in Spanish. Linda's eyes lit up, probably thinking she had a way out. Speaking rapid-fire Spanish, she got close to Leo and was patting his arm like she was his mother, occasionally pointing at Mark and me. Warren, Mark and I watched this with uncomfortable confusion. I don't know how Leo was able to keep his cool during all of this because this was really awkward for everyone. Leo came back to us with Linda still clinging to him. Leo, a quiet borderline, she says she got permission from her daughter to come in to take a bubble bath in their new jacuzzi bathtub and that you let her in. Is that true? My jaw dropped. I did let her in earlier today because she said she forgot something at the house. We went in and left right after she found it. I have no idea what she's talking about, but I do have her daughter's number if you want to talk to her. At this point, the color drained from Linda's face, and she let go of Leo, trying to edge back to Victoria's house. Leo stopped her and asked, "Is there something wrong, ma'am?" Linda then dropped her act. "All right, I wanted to try out my daughter's new jacuzzi while she was gone as a reward for staying away when my daughter told me to. Victoria said she was glad things were getting better and I thought I'd treat myself. I got a quiet borderline to let me in earlier, and while she was checking on my daughter's cats, I unlocked the back window and took an Uber here this evening to enjoy my bathroom because I knew those two would call my daughter or you guys with a convoluted story. I was just going to take my bath, clean the tub and leave. My daughter wouldn't have even known." To end this story, Linda spent a nice night in jail. Nobody was there, didn't want to bail her out. Victoria is done with her mom's behavior. I suspect she's going to ban Linda from the house for good this time. And I learned that some entitled people are just too dumb to realize that just because you're getting along with someone doesn't mean you get to make the rules. Story 3. It was just another Tuesday at our local park. I enjoy these weekday afternoons when I can take my 2-year-old to the playground. My little one has her father's skin color, lighter than mine with curly hair lighter than my dark coils. We're used to the occasional looks, but I never expected our differences would cause what happened. My husband and I met in college. He's from Northern Europe with fair skin, while I'm from West Africa. We knew our children would be mixes of us both, and our daughter is exactly that. That day started normally. We packed lunch, some toys, and went to the park around noon. My daughter was having fun going down the slide. I'd catch her at the bottom, and she'd squeal with delight, wanting to go again. My daughter would ask me to let her go down the slide again, clapping her tiny hands each time she reached the bottom. I was helping her climb back up when I noticed a woman watching us from a bench. She kept looking between me and my daughter, then whispering to another mother beside her. I tried to ignore it. This wasn't my first time dealing with curious onlookers. About 20 minutes later, I was pushing my daughter on the swing when a police car pulled up to the park entrance. I didn't think much of it until the officer, a stern-looking woman with her hair in a tight bun, walked directly toward us, her hand on her holster. Before I could process what was happening, she stood in front of the swing, blocking my daughter. The officer told me in a harsh tone to hand over the child. I froze, confused. When I asked why, the officer repeated more forcefully, saying they had received a report of a kidnapping. My heart dropped. I pulled my daughter from the swing and held her close. I tried to explain that this was my daughter. The officer's face got hard as she said the child didn't look like mine, and that I needed to do what she said right away. My daughter, feeling my fear, began to cry and hold me tighter. I begged the officer, telling her I could prove I was the mother, mentioning I had pictures on my phone and her birth certificate in my car. The officer cut me off and again told me to hand over my child, now shouting. When I didn't do it right away, she grabbed my daughter's arm, trying to pull her away. I held on tighter, backing away while begging her to stop, telling her she was scaring my child and saying this was my baby. What happened next still gives me nightmares. The officer tackled me to the ground. My grip on my daughter loosened, and she fell beside me on the grass, screaming. I reached for her, but the officer flipped me onto my stomach, pulling my arms behind my back. I begged to be allowed to hold my baby. I was crying, watching my scared 2-year-old scream just inches away. The officer put handcuffs on me while I kept asking to comfort my child. By now, a crowd had gathered, many with phones recording. I saw the woman from the bench, the one who had been watching us, standing nearby looking pleased. She said to everyone that she knew something wasn't right, and that couldn't be my child. I couldn't speak. My daughter was still screaming for me, and I couldn't reach her. A stranger sat beside her, trying to calm her, but she wouldn't stop crying. About 10 minutes later, which felt like forever, another police car arrived. An older male officer got out, saw what was happening, and came over. The supervisor asked what was going on. The officer who tackled me briefly said I was a kidnapping suspect and that a witness called it in, claiming I didn't match the child. The supervisor looked at my crying daughter, then at me, then back at the officer with anger. The supervisor asked if she had asked for ID or questioned me before getting physical. When the officer tried to say I was resisting, the supervisor cut her off. He knelt beside me and gently asked if this was my child. Through tears, I said yes and begged him to let me comfort her since she was scared. I explained frantically that my purse had pictures, her birth certificate was in my car, and that my husband could confirm everything if they called him at work. The supervisor took off my handcuffs right away. I rushed to my daughter, holding her as we both cried. He then told the officer to go to his car. From a distance, I heard him scolding her, asking what she was thinking, and saying she had attacked a mother in front of her child just because of different skin colors. He asked if she understood what she had done. He came back to me, looking sorry. The supervisor apologized, saying what happened was wrong. He asked for my statement and promised this would be dealt with seriously. The woman who called, the first Karen, tried to leave, but the supervisor stopped her. He told her to stay and explain exactly what made her think a kidnapping was happening. She gave weak excuses about trying to help and our different looks, but several witnesses came forward to say I was clearly the child's mother the whole time at the park. It took weeks for my daughter to stop having bad dreams. She became afraid of playgrounds and police officers. My husband was very angry when he found out. Being a corporate attorney, he knew what to do. Within 2 days, the officer who attacked us was put on leave. A week later, she was fired. The police department said sorry, but that wasn't enough for what they did to us. We filed a lawsuit for using too much force, racial profiling, assault, and emotional harm. The officer's body camera footage, with bystander videos, made it a clear case. The woman who made the call wasn't let off either. We included her in the lawsuit for making a false report based on racial bias that led to this traumatic event. It's been 3 months now. My daughter is starting to enjoy playgrounds again, though she still gets nervous around strangers. The lawsuit is moving forward, and our attorney says we have a strong case that will likely end with a big settlement. I never wanted to become an example of racial profiling or police misconduct. I just wanted to enjoy the park with my child. But if our story can help stop this from happening to another family, then sharing it matters. The supervisor told me later that the department would start new training on bias and proper ways to handle suspected kidnapping calls. It's a small comfort, but it's something. No mother should have to prove her child is her own, especially not while being thrown to the ground in front of that child. Some days I'm angry, some days I'm sad. But every day, I hold my daughter closer and tell her I'll always protect her, even from those who should protect us. Story 4. This story takes place during the week my wife and I got married. I was 28 at the time. We had a destination wedding in the Bahamas, and it was amazing. We had 15 people who were able to join us. We had decided to pick Bahamas as it was the first place my wife had ever gone to for a vacation, and it's where I proposed to her. So for us, the week was pure magic. Now on to the story of my mother. I could write about her antics during the whole week, but I don't think people would want to read a book, so I'll only talk about the wedding day itself. It's Tuesday, in the middle of our trip. Both my wife and I wanted to follow the don't see each other before the wedding ceremony rule. We've gotten some flack for it, but whatever. We were getting married off the resort in a small blue church in a nature sanctuary. I was to go to the park first and my wife would follow. While waiting on the rides to the park for me, my best man, and our guests, my mom kept saying things like, "It's Italian tradition for the mother to take photos with the groom before the wedding. It's Italian tradition for the mother to take photos with the best man and guests." This was getting annoying, but then my mother pulls me aside and starts to have a heart-to-heart talk to me, which I thought was going to go one way. It was basically a lecture about how important she is and how selfish I was. She actually said, "This day isn't all about you and her." It ended with, "It's Italian tradition to wear these cufflinks." I was expecting cufflinks that my grandpa wore at his wedding. I respected him greatly. He was a huge influence in my life. She pulls out these dollar store cufflinks and keeps trying to pass them off as a family heirloom. I later found out that she had bought them in Bahamas as an impulse buy. Also, my suit wasn't made with cufflinks in mind. Anyways, as the rides show up, my mother tells me, "Oh, don't forget, it's Italian tradition for the mother to walk to the son down the aisle." Everyone looked at her like she was crazy cause even my dumbass knows that's not a tradition anywhere in the world. I called her out on that, and she started arguing with me. She sort of relented and told me, "Well, if you're going to break your mother's heart, at least follow the Italian tradition of making your brother the usher." I told her that like only 6 people were coming with me, but fine, whatever. We finally leave, my mother deciding to stay behind to stay with the bride's side. Lord knows what crap she tried to pull with her. We get to the nature sanctuary and go to the small blue church that can hold maybe 40 people. Everyone just sits where they want, and my brother stands by the door to be the usher. Now, my wife's maid of honor is her best friend, and she's a sickeningly amazing person. Honestly, she's probably the most selfless person on the planet. However, her only flaw is that she is very loud. I bring that up because when my wife and everyone with her pulls up, you can hear her maid of honor, and the distance between the entrance to the park and the church is quite large. I perk up and get ready when my brother, who is still standing by the door, says, "I may go have a smoke and explore the park," and I tell him, "We just heard them pull up." "No." He tries arguing with me about how he'll just take a quick look around, but finally just shuts up and gives me dirty looks for the rest of the day. The nature sanctuary is huge and very maze-like. The other guests show up. Everyone gets their seats. We didn't care who sat where. Real glad we had that usher. We start the ceremony, and I see my soon-to-be wife as a bride come around the corner. My heart stops, and I realize that this is the best moment in my life. Everyone else apparently knew what I was thinking because I had a smile that went from ear to ear. Honestly, the 2 seconds of her coming around the corner made all my stress vanish. My wife looked at me and gave me a huge smile as well. Seeing her walk down the aisle is a memory I replay that in my head all the time. Sorry not sorry for the sappy bit. Ceremony goes great. We do our vows. I can hear my best man behind me crying like his mom just got shot. After the ceremony, my mother is back into Italian tradition mode. It's Italian tradition for the mother to have a photo with the groom. It's Italian tradition for the mother to zeiss. If I were to type out everything that was Italian tradition, no one would read this. Later, when we got our photos back, my mother had this scowl in her face the entire time. There's one that's my favorite because it's during the whole "Do you take him to be" part, and she has this look of, like, pure disgust and hatred. It's great. So we get back to the resort. We have our reception. My mother tries to start it out by saying, "It's Italian tradition for the mother of the groom to do 3 speeches." My best man wasn't having any of that and put his foot down on who does a speech. He was so good and cool at keeping her insanity in control during the week. Everyone does their speeches. My now-in-laws do theirs and hand us a card. In it, it says, "When we get home, we will give you $1,000 as a wedding present." Awesome. My mother tried a few more Italian traditions. One was about her cutting the cake. Several were about her and various photos with people. The cap to the night after dinner, my mother walks up to me and my now wife and says to her, "How much did your parents give you?" She was like, "Huh?" And my mother goes, "Well, it's Italian tradition for the groom's parents to give double the bride's parents." We paused in confusion and told her they haven't given us anything yet, but they will give us $1,000 when we get home. My mother goes, "Good, I'll give you $3,000 then." We were like, okay, spoilers. My mother never gave us a single penny. It's been 4 years since our wedding, and my mother still tries to tell people that she paid for everything. The wedding, my suit, my wife's dress. Her grandma with dementia bought it for her. So that really pisses off my wife. All 17, counting my wife and me, people's airfare, hotel, wedding ceremony, and so much more. The only thing she paid for was her and my brother's trip, and the only reason my brother even came was because it was a free vacation for him. And I'll end it with this fun fact. I'm half Italian, but have never once in my life done anything Italian or have acknowledged my Italian half. My wife and I also don't care about tradition. She's Polish, I'm half Italian, half Irish. We got married in a Christian Bahamian church. What's also funny is my mother refuses to call my wife her name. She just says, "Your wife," in a snide tone. "How are you and your wife," kind of thing. Like, very clearly saying that she isn't part of our family at all. So yeah, that's my Italian traditional wedding. And yes, I've cut that toxic woman out of my life. Story 5. Trigger warning: emotional and family conflict. Is this a bad thing to say to my mother, who has never acknowledged the things she has put me through? I am planning to have a conversation with her at my grandmother's house on Tuesday, which is only 2 days from now, and I haven't been home since the whole cat situation. Some of you may know about the cat issue and the ongoing parent problems from my other posts. Do I come off as mean for wanting to bring this up? There are more things she has done, but I don't want to sit there for hours going through everything when I already know it will get emotional. This is what I am planning to say. Mom, I want you to really listen to me and hear what I have to say. The whole incident with Cosmo has brought back a lot of painful memories from the past, and it is affecting me deeply. Please try not to interrupt until I am finished, because I want to feel heard. I know you love me, and I do love you too. but I am finding it very difficult to cope with everything I have been through. I understand that I have also put you through struggles, but we have never discussed the challenges I have faced. Some of this will be about my teenage years and also about now. When my mental health was declining and I ended up in the hospital a few times, you were never truly there to support me. Yes, you were there physically some of the time, but emotionally you weren't present. You would tell me that I was selfish, that you had given up on me, and other things that made me feel small. Then you would tell the entire family, which left me feeling embarrassed and like I was a joke. Sometimes, you only showed up at the hospital to make me feel bad, and then you would leave and not come back until I had to be picked up. When my brother struggled and ended up in the hospital, you were so supportive of him. I understand it may have been a different situation, but you gave him the love I had needed back then. You didn't put him down or share everything with the family. Instead, you allowed him the choice of who to tell. You visited him nearly every day, but you didn't do the same for me. When he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, that was when you finally decided to get me tested. But for nearly 8 years, I had been asking for help to be tested. Even a psychiatrist at the hospital told you that I showed signs of it 2 years before my brother was diagnosed, but you constantly ignored me or told me that I was overreacting. Whenever I bring this up, you and my stepdad tell me that my brother wanted help, so you treated him differently, or you tell me to just get over it. But I wanted help too. Every time I was younger and tried to talk to you, you said that if I told doctors the truth or asked for help, I would end up strapped down and constantly sedated. That scared me so much that I didn't want to reach out, and now I feel incapable of asking for help because of that fear. When you first found out I was hurting myself, instead of comforting me, you shamed me. You made me undress completely and then yelled at me, which was extremely upsetting. You grabbed my blade and pretended you were going to harm yourself with it right in front of me. This was horrifying and deeply traumatic, especially coming from my own mother. You then tried to have me admitted into the psychiatric ward, but when you told everyone about the situation, you left out what you had done. I remember one time, just after I had gotten out of the hospital, we had an argument, and you told me things like, "Cut deeper next time," and "Do it properly next time." You said those words when I was already in such a fragile state, and they have stayed with me ever since. When I was around 13 or 14, I know I was very difficult to deal with, but you brought it up during so many arguments, even years later, despite the fact that I had already apologized many times and acknowledged my mistakes. I was also going through a rough period then, because I was remembering that I had been assaulted when I was 10 years old. You knew about this, yet you would still sometimes bring up how I acted during that time whenever we argued, which made the pain worse. You also made me drop out of high school just before the last term because my grades didn't meet your standards. The same week you made me leave school, I had an abortion scheduled. I felt isolated and alone, and I fell into a deep depression for nearly a year. That made it very hard for me to look for a job because the abortion was rarely ever spoken about again, as if it didn't happen. It was heartbreaking to attend the graduation and watch all of my classmates on stage when I should have been up there with them. I had to sit and watch everyone enjoying their last day together while I was left at home, missing out on a milestone that should have been mine too. You also got rid of about 80% of the animals we had while growing up, and that affected all of us deeply. We learned not to get too attached because we knew you might decide to give them away. I know I made mistakes too, but so did you. For example, when I secretly kept a mouse and later admitted it, you and my stepdad allowed me to keep him. But after an argument, you threw him away just to punish me. When you gave me a cat for one of my birthdays, you got rid of it the very next day because it wasn't friendly enough, even though it was nice to me. When we got the puppies Jared and Cobra, you gave them away after a week because you said you were too unwell to look after them, even though I was helping more than you did. You constantly talk about how much you dislike the cats we have now and even say you are going to let them outside so they won't come back. Sometimes I find you letting Simba outside and you claim it was an accident. But it always seems to be you, and it makes it very hard for me to trust what you say. You put me in therapy when I was 13, but I found it hard to open up to a stranger. Then, just as I started to feel comfortable with one therapist and began talking about our home life, you pulled me out because they contacted Child Protective Services. Later, you told me that you lied to them and made it seem as though everything was my fault, saying I was just being a hormonal teenager. When I was 14, you put an app on my phone that allowed you to see every single message I sent to my friends or anyone else. That was a huge violation of my privacy. I felt like I couldn't talk to anyone about anything because I knew you were reading everything I said. This created serious trust issues and anxiety for me, and it stopped me from opening up to people. Even today, I find it very difficult to share my feelings because I still feel like anything I type is being monitored. When I was 13, I stayed at my best friend's house for almost a month because of how strained our relationship at home had become. Instead of trying to mend things directly, you got my biological father, who had been absent, involved. You made him show up at my best friend's door and try to convince me to move in with him, even though I was already practically living with my best friend at the time. You knew this would have a huge emotional impact on me, but you still went through with it. In nearly every argument I have with you and my stepdad, you both tell me to move out and threaten to throw away all of my belongings. You say it so often, and then later you turn around and claim you didn't mean it. If you truly feel that I need to move out, I would rather you just be honest with me instead of constantly using it as a threat. The last thing I need to talk about is the way you and my stepdad treated Cosmo. That situation was a real eye-opener for me. I don't even recognize the people I used to call my parents anymore. Instead of thanking us for saving our cat's life, you punished both me and my boyfriend, putting us down when all we did was step up in an emergency. My stepdad even said that my boyfriend was banned from the house simply because he helped save Cosmo's life. That was heartbreaking to hear. I never asked you to pay the veterinary bill. I only asked that you thank my boyfriend for stepping in when you couldn't. I am still in shock at how you both reacted, even though you knew Cosmo might not have survived without urgent care. Out of everything I've been through with you, I don't know how I can come back from that. I feel like I can never fully trust you to take care of the cats, and when I'm not home at night, I worry that you'll get rid of Cosmo out of spite. Honestly, if you can't take care of pets properly, you shouldn't get them in the first place because it is wrong and even against the law to ignore an animal's medical needs. All of this has been weighing on me so much that I can barely get 2 hours of sleep each night since the Cosmo incident. What I needed in those years was a simple apology. You never apologized for any of it, and whenever I brought it up, you always turned it back onto me. Now, I don't know if it's too late to fix what has been done. The damage is already there, but I am telling you all of this in the hope that you will finally acknowledge the pain I have been through.